What's going on, guys? Pegasus and the Wise. Guys, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you sub, make sure you hit the bell. Guys, Sky Prison is a card that we have been looking at from Bold, but we just couldn't get around to it because there were so many events happening. There were so many decks to cover. There's so many combo videos to do. But now that we've got that out of the way, I just wanted to take a look at some of the decks that can benefit a little bit off of Sky Prison. So let's look into it, shall we? Wanted to touch specifically on the card and its text before I even jump into it, because I feel that reading cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is really, really important, and it is a lost art. Not Solemn Judgment lost art, but definitely a lost art. So touching on the card, I definitely think that it's a powerful card, so let's talk about it. During your main phase, you can activate this effect. This card in your hand becomes revealed until the end of your opponent's turn. While this card is revealed by this effect, set cards on the field cannot be destroyed by card effects. If a set, spell, or trap is activated, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then, if you activated the effect while this card was revealed, you can reveal and set one spell or trap directly from your deck, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn. The important part is that you can only use one of his effects per turn. If you could use both, this card would be $180 minimum, and it would shit all over everything, and it would be in almost every other deck, for the simple fact that it could accelerate into the next spell or trap card in your deck. That would be absolutely insane, and it's really, really important to at least understand, while it's not pertinent, is not necessary right now, I think going forwards in the future, definitely once the boss monster, extra deck monsters get hit, like Dragoon and Enforcer at some point, probably in the middle of next year or something like that, it would be absolutely insane. This is what I wanted to show you as far as if you could actually set the spells and that last little bit wasn't there. This card would be absolutely insane because you could set up however you wanted to, whenever you wanted to, however you wanted to, and you wouldn't have to play a back row deck. That's why they had to limit that, so that you could specifically only use it most of the time for back row decks. You can still use it in other decks, and it is a really, really powerful rock monster that is definitely going to devastate your opponent. As far as moving into the Eldritch portion, I feel like this one is the one that could actually do some damage right now, and I actually did see it in Denver, and I saw guys smacking the living shit out of people. Excuse my language, but I just got to tell you that because he was devastating his opponents, and a lot of people were manning Lightning Storm in the tournament, and he was devastating each and every one of them because they were just either getting stuck in their hands, or sometimes it just was devastating. I'll just say that. As far as this deck though, again, because of that last little bit, no, you can't set Cursed Eldlin and then use both of his effects. That would be absolutely insane. But for this setup, you would obviously special out Eldritch after you've revealed already, and then you'd have a way with Eldlin to get into one of the Golden Land trap cards, and then you'd have pretty much the full setup. And as soon as you activated one of those traps, it would devastate your opponent. Tellers is a very, very interesting one that I haven't seen anybody touch on anywhere online, and I think that's absolutely insane for the simple fact that if you have a level 2 level 4s, you have a Gallon Granite. Gallon Granite is generic. No, it does not take 2 level 4 rocks. Maybe you played out Emancipator and thought that it did, but it doesn't. And Heavenly Prison is a rock. That is nuts. And I really think it's nuts inside of this deck, particularly because you can search Nibiru or Heavenly Prison. If you've opened both of them, then you're going to loop your opponent endlessly off of Triver, and then lock your opponent under the same kind of losing condition that they're going to be stuck under for the entirety of the game. That's just absolutely insane. I definitely think it's something to touch on because that's the one that's interesting, and I have Italian friends that definitely, as soon as they saw the card, they immediately got back in the lab, and it brought a lot of people back to the game. That's the benefits of this card. Again, in this deck, Trap Tricks, obviously you guys have seen how Parallel Exceed works into the deck. It makes 2 level 4s, which again makes another Granite. Obviously, if you read a Nibiru, then you want to go into Rafflesia so that you can negate it. But if you don't, then you can have specific stuff like that just absolutely wipe your opponent out, and you're going to have plenty of set. As far as all of the decks, this is just all of the decks in a list. I definitely think there's just so many other lists that you can have, whether it be Bee Trooper that you wanted to try it out in, whether you wanted to slip it into Phantom Knights, and so on and so forth. Sky Striker, I could go on and on and on. As far as the deck list though, I definitely think that Eldritch is probably the best one right now. I think Paleo would be a really strong choice as well, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary. But I definitely do think, at least at the time, at least the way that it's currently constructed, And as long as you care about not playing cards like Baroness, there's the Synchro version. There's definitely the Zombie World version that is a really, really good choice right now because you're ending on Ball the Rock and Zombie World and all kind of powerful stuff like that. And plenty other stuff because, you know, powerful stuff like Unizombie, powerful stuff that can mix in and out of decks to just make Baroness out of thin air. It's a really powerful choice in general to play Eldritch right now. But this is the Sky Prison way that I would play it if I were to play the deck. I definitely think that this deck is really, really keen on stunning everything that your opponent wants to do. And I definitely think a card like Trap Trick clearly goes into this deck. And obviously with the side deck cards, and then obviously with the extra deck stuff, like Dangerous is a super poly target, definitely because Enforcer exists. You have Mad Golden Lord because of the super poly stuff. And if you have leftover traps and Eldritches and you can OTK your opponent, it's just something that you want to think about. And then the obvious super poly targets to handle the rest of the decks. The Pallades, the Zeus, the Link Spider that you know you got to have, the Vampire Sucker, and so on and so forth. I definitely think if you're moving on, I think Heavenly Guru is definitely an option. But I distinctly remember saying, and I'm going to say it again, as long as these extra deck monsters exist, you don't need to play a card like Sky Prison. However, Heavenly Prison, whatever you want to call them. But however, eventually Dragoon is going to get hit. And then eventually after that, I can see Enforcer getting hit, or at least some kind of restricted in some kind of way. Fusion Destiny maybe. Who knows? But I definitely think it's something real that you're going to have to kind of keep your awareness and your eye on, because only over time will it start to infiltrate into some of these back row decks. And basically any of the decks that play 6 of the no cards is definitely something that you want to have in your deck. Sky Prison being able to protect all that 100% means that at some point too, Evenly Matched is directly tied to it, and it will also be a problem. On this last little bit of focusing on stuff that may or may not actually exist, I definitely think that Trap Tricks is a really, really strong option for Sky Prison, Heavenly Prison to be played as well. Just for the simple fact that Parallel Exceed is a thing, but I think that could get a little bit bricky if you draw that. And the Sky Prison, Heavenly Prison, and no back row that actually matter. You know, like you would have to kind of mix and mingle and figure out whether you want to main Imperial, main the artifact stuff, main at this many trap holes. That's going to specifically depend on what exactly that you want to do. But I definitely think that these are really, really powerful options. And this is probably how I'd play it, at least initially, before I really deep dived into it. Again, Sanctum is probably something that you would have to main inside of a format like this. But with Flunderies, you just never know. That's why I put it down there. And as far as the rest of this stuff, I think the rest of the extra deck is pretty much self-explanatory. Again, you got to have Gallant Granted. If you can go into a rank 4 and it can help you to jump specifically into Heavenly Prison, it's definitely something that you have to have. As far as that's concerned, guys, again, there's plenty of other decks. Let me know down in the comments a deck that you think would work really, really well with Sky Prison, with Heavenly Prison. And I'll see you guys next time. This stuff is really, really interesting, and it's only going to get more interesting as the extra deck monsters start to fade. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'm out. Pegasus out. Arrivederci.